Hey, my name is Melanie, and I am here in Missouri with my church, and we are giving our testimonies that we want to hopefully reach out and, with our stories being shared, help people that just need that extra encouragement. So I'm very, very nervous, very reluctant about sharing my story, but God convinced me that my story needed to be shared. So I'm going to start with my childhood. I was raised in an amazing home with amazing Christian parents. I was raised in Christian church, Christian schools, family of five siblings, and mom and dad. Mom and dad were high school sweethearts. The whole storybook childhood. My father was, we always joked around about him being the Charles Ingalls. If you've ever heard of Little House on the Prairie and the whole Charles Ingalls character, that was who my father was. We lived on a farm, country girl from small town USA, lots of family and relatives. Amazing childhood, but living in a childhood like that, I was never taught how to deal with fighting. I was never taught the evils of this world and the evils of man. Yes, I was raised biblically and knew right from wrong and that sin nature and Satan and his evil, but I just wasn't raised to understand the sin of man, and I kind of had that heart to save all the wounded, and I could love them enough to save them, which led me down some horrible paths. I ended up in a bad crowd around the age 12, 13. It was the 80s. We called ourselves the Stoners. But I personally stayed away from the drugs and the alcohol because I had parents at home that if I got busted, I was in big trouble. But I was always there in the environment. I was the one helping my friend in the bathroom as they were vomiting from drinking too much. I was the one trying to keep my friends under control when they were high as a kite out in public. I was around those types of people, which continued to lead me into a heart of rebellion that got me wrapped up with the wrong guy. I was 15 years old, and I was raped. And because I allowed Satan to lie to me and shame me and believe that because my virginity was taken from me, I was no longer of value, that no man would want a woman like me that had that taken away. So I stayed with the same crowd, and I stayed around the same boy, and unfortunately, every time he saw an opportunity to get me alone, he would attack me and violate me again. And through all these events, at age 15, I became pregnant. And because of the amazing parents that I have, when I came home to share with my father that I was pregnant, he looked up at me and said that the choice is mine, but that he couldn't imagine anybody else raising his grandchild but me. And that made the decision very easy for me to choose to parent this innocent unborn child. I do want to say that if any woman out there is in that situation or has been, if you've chosen abortion, you can be forgiven, and you do not need to live in shame because of a decision that you made. And the blood of Christ is there to cover you and forgive you, and you don't need to be identified by that sin, so you can move forward from that. I'm trying to sum this up in like a 5-minute thing, and it's getting difficult. But so from there, I had the most amazing little boy. He was the joy of my life, and he saved me, through the course of being raped and abused. And in that whole crowd, I was suicidal. I was anorexic. I was on a path of complete self-destruction. But I still had my morals, which is kind of hard to understand, but because of how I was raised, I still always wanted to be what God wanted me, but Satan had me convinced that I couldn't be. That same little boy is 26 years old now. He married the love of his life a few months ago. They purchased a home. They have great jobs. And I'm very, very proud of the person that he's become, and he's a productive member of society. From there, I married the very first guy that asked me. I turned 18, got married, had 2 more sons with him, and me and him are now on friendly terms. We talk, we co-parent together, but the marriage did die in him having an affair. And it wasn't just the betrayal of affair, but he was having an affair with a girl that was a friend of mine that we spent a lot of time with her and her husband. She was cheating on her husband as well. We sat with each other in church. We would go out for lunch after church. So there was many, many levels of betrayal. So in the course of that marriage ending, I immediately jumped into survival mode. A single mother, 3 kids, had no idea what was going on with my life. I knew that Christ was the answer, but clearly I wasn't making Christ-like decisions. I wasn't choosing my mates based on what Christ wanted for me, and that led to another bad marriage. So I went straight from that marriage into another marriage. I had 2 more sons, so yes, I am a mother of 5 sons. And that was a man with a lot of mental disease, narcissistic sociopath, very controlling. He moved me from the state of Oregon out here to the state of Missouri, isolated me from anything that I ever knew. At some point in time, I didn't even have a car or a cell phone, just anything to make me dependent on him, and very manipulative, had me convinced that I was nothing, had me convinced that I had no value. But through it all, I still continued to church my family and continued to be in church and continued to look to the Lord for answers. But I also was conflicted with morals and oh my goodness, a second divorce, and now here I have all these children from all these different men, and it's gonna make me white trash, it's gonna make me an undesirable woman, and all these lies that held me captive in a very, very dangerous situation. So at one point in time, he had completely lost control, and he had put me in a headlock and choked me to unconsciousness. But he didn't let go. He was choking me to death. And so my 11-year-old son had to step up, and he had to stab him in the arm and cause him to let go of me so that I could breathe, because I was not breathing for I don't know how long. I was unconscious at the time. And from there spiraled into a whole nother road, a whole nother path. The police came and picked me and my children up. We ended up at a shelter for women and children. The story could just go on and on. There's obviously a whole lot more to the backdrop of my story, but I chose right then and there that there's 2 paths to take. There's the path of serving Christ and partnering with Christ, which will lead to Christ being enough, Christ filling those emptinesses and those voids, and Christ giving you peace, giving you eternal joy and eternal happiness. Is my life like a perfect fairy tale now? No. Did any of my prayers through all of this get answered? Not all of them. It didn't turn out the way I wanted. I made a choice to take my children across state lines and head back to my home state in Oregon, which is against the law. And it made me a kidnapper because I took my children away from their father and fled the state. So I was court ordered to return my children to him, and he was given custody. And from there, it's just been 4 years of a lot of struggle and a lot of pain. So life is not easy, and serving Jesus is not going to make your life a fairy tale. It's not going to fix the messes. Life is messy. Life is ugly. The world is filled with sin, and the world is filled with evil, and it's going to interrupt our lives. But how we respond to it and how we make Jesus enough in our lives can bring us eternal joy. I have so much joy in my life. I have 5 beautiful, beautiful boys that I have an amazing relationship with. And I have an amazing relationship with my church family, my community, my real family. I have a lot of amazing things going on in my life because I chose a path that led to goodness, yeah, instead of self-destructive, that would have led to alcohol, drugs, probably another failed marriage or a couple other failed marriages, whatever that other path would have led me to, I chose the path of Christ, which has made me strong, which has made me realize that there is greatness inside me, and God doesn't make garbage. God made greatness inside you too. So if you're listening to this testimony and you're struggling with your past, you can be forgiven. God did not design us to live in shame. And Satan wanted me to live in shame. Satan wanted me to keep my past buried and be ashamed of everything that's happened in my life and feel like I had no worth or no value. And Jesus Christ came and redeemed me from that. I've gone on way too long. But if you are looking for peace and happiness and joy, you're not going to find it in the ups and downs of this crazy, crazy life. You're gonna find it when you partner up with Jesus and walk through this life with him. So have a blessed day.